Well, Joe Rogan has finally responded to the Spotify controversy that has plagued America's most popular podcaster for the past week. Following Neil Young's ultimatum and switch to Amazon Music, several other boomer musicians threatened to leave or have left Spotify actually in protest of Rogan's misinformation on the platform. Kind of really interesting that they're trying this, that they're wanting to censor, that they're actually fighting and protesting for censorship, for the removal of certain content on a platform. No one is forcing their listeners. If you go to Spotify and you want to listen to Neil Young, no one's forcing you to first watch a Rogan episode. That would be one thing, right? If it was, well, you can't get past this, into the area that you want to listen to music and listen to other podcasts until you first hear this clip from Joe Rogan. They're not forcing that on anybody. So what these musicians are doing, strangely, is protesting for censorship. They're protesting for the removal of content that they themselves don't have to listen to. Their audience is not being forced to listen to. No one's being forced to listen to it. You have to seek it out. You have to press play. That's the way it works. But nonetheless, they are trying to band together. They're trying to ban Joe Rogan, get him kicked off the platform. Now, Spotify has actually lost some money today with the stock market, a whopping $2 billion in market value after this sort of debacle. It's unclear. I mean, look, the stock market right now is going crazy, right? It's going up, it's going down. There's been a lot of loss lately. So it's really hard to tell if this is purely because of this. It's interesting to see if investors think that there's going to be more, if they believe that maybe this is just the beginning of a trend and that bigger musicians are going to come out after Spotify and say, we're removing our music unless you get rid of Joe Rogan. What's really interesting about this is Spotify needs Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan doesn't need Spotify. And, look, if Joe Rogan leaves Spotify, Joe Rogan goes back to YouTube, where he has tons of views. If YouTube kicks him off, that's fine. Joe Rogan then just starts his own streaming service, or publishes his own podcast on his own website. People go to Spotify for Joe Rogan. I don't think people were on Spotify and then used Spotify as a discovery for Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is getting his audience a lot. I mean, for one, because he had a large audience to begin with, but a lot of it's grown because of all of this controversy, because people keep pointing at him and saying he's misinformation and look at all the people he's bringing on his podcast. And people are saying, wait a minute, I would like to hear that. All I'm getting is one side of the story every time I turn on the news. I mean, we're being force fed the same thing over and over and over again from CNN and MSNBC. We're getting, and New York Times, everybody knows what the CDC and Fauci's stance is on the pandemic. We're not getting anything else. And people don't trust Fauci and the CDC and their response to the pandemic because, well, it's been flimsy and flip-floppy and things have been found out to be untrue, or they've lied, telling the noble lie and whatnot. And so people are seeking out this other information. Joe Rogan is providing it, and so people are seeking him out. Spotify's growing because Joe Rogan is there, not the other way around. Joe Rogan isn't being given a platform on Spotify. So it's kind of interesting that they're even attempting this protest, that people think that this would potentially work. I do think it could work in getting Joe Rogan removed from Spotify. I think if enough of them got together and said, we don't want Joe Rogan on the platform, you need to remove him. I do think that there could be enough power if large enough artists came forward saying, we're banding together on this. I do think it would cause a problem for Spotify and a problem for Joe Rogan. Only a problem for Joe Rogan in that he would have to leave Spotify. But then Joe Rogan, he goes and he publishes his podcast on his own website and people flock to his own website. It's really no loss for him. He could make just as much money. But the thing about Spotify, the deal is he's making a fortune being on Spotify, more money than he needs. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I think if he had to walk away from $100 million and he instead had to make 40 or 50 on his own, I don't think that would really hurt Joe Rogan. I don't know if he cares that much about the money. I don't know. I don't know the guy, so maybe he does. But the reason why he's getting so much money from Spotify is because they believe that he's bringing value to the platform, that not only are people coming to listen to his podcast, but once they get there, once they've signed up, then they're going to start browsing around and listening to other podcasts or listening to music because they're there. They've downloaded the app. I know I've downloaded the app, and I did it because Joe Rogan was on there and I wanted to hear his episodes. That's why I downloaded it. So Spotify needs Joe, not the other way around. CNN knows this. Check out this clip.
Rogan is like a weed that sprang up outside the mainstream media ecosystem, and he thrived there, and he has this huge audience. And that's what's really scary, that Spotify could kick him off tomorrow and it wouldn't make a dent. It wouldn't make a dent in his audience. People would still listen to him. And crucially, they still wouldn't trust more mainstream media sources. And I think that's what's really, really frightening to people.
So yeah, I mean, they know that this is not really going to hurt Joe Rogan. People are going to be listening to Joe no matter where he goes. That's kind of the point. On Sunday, however, Spotify did respond to all of this. They announced that they changed its policies around content concerning COVID. They said that they would enforce its rules about COVID misinformation and add an advisory, but that they would not take the position of a content censor. So I think that was a really smart move on their part. So they're saying, look, we'll put an advisory saying, maybe this episode doesn't reflect the views of the CDC. Listen at your own risk, or at least listen knowing this. I think that's fair enough. That's fine if they want to do that. But I also agree with them that they're not taking the stance of being a content censor. They don't want to have to say what is truth, what is mistruth, what is right, all of these things. And speaking of that, watch this clip from Joe Rogan's response to all of this.
The problem I have with the term misinformation, especially today, is that many of the things that we thought of as misinformation just a short while ago are now accepted as fact. Like, for instance, 8 months ago, if you said, if you get vaccinated, you can still catch COVID and you can still spread COVID, you would be removed from social media. They would ban you from certain platforms. Now, that's accepted as fact. If you said, I don't think cloth masks work, you would be banned from social media. Now, that's openly and repeatedly stated on CNN. If you said, I think it's possible that COVID-19 came from a lab, you'd be banned from many social media platforms. Now, that's on the cover of Newsweek.
So yeah, they're, absolutely right. Lab leak theory was totally censored. I had a video removed from YouTube. It was also removed from Instagram and Facebook when I was discussing the lab leak theory. Not only the lab leak theory of it came from a lab in Wuhan, but also the accusations against the United States that I was reporting on news. Leaders in Russia, leaders in Iran, leaders in China were accusing the United States of leaking the virus in a U.S.-based lab. And I was just reporting on what these leaders were accusing the United States of, as well as the United States accusation that the lab leak happened in Wuhan. That was honest, truthful information. That was actually newsworthy to have leaders of other countries accusing the United States. That was still removed from YouTube. That was removed from Facebook. That was removed from Instagram, considered misinformation. He's right that only a few months ago, if you said that that the vaccine did not stop COVID, that you could still catch COVID, that you could still spread COVID, that was considered misinformation. I know I experienced that myself when I would make those claims, and I would be met with, whoa, 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 that is not true. The vaccine absolutely stops the spread. And I would say that's not what the data is coming from Israel. It was still met with a lot of hostility. A lot of people who mentioned those things and said those things, they were censored. I mean, my channel on YouTube has been, I have a warning on my channel. They don't recommend my videos to anyone. I don't get the benefit of suggested videos. I'll do the same subject on my channel. I'll get 20,000 views. I'll do the exact same subject on Hills Rising and get 500,000 views. And it's because I have a warning on my channel that doesn't allow for suggested videos. It doesn't allow for any real discovery onto my channel. People have to seek it out, and they have to seek out my videos. And that is because they claim that I spread misinformation. What was the misinformation? Back in April, I said that the Pfizer vaccine was known to cause heart problems. That was before the official announcement of Pfizer causing myocarditis. And they said that was misinformation. Only a couple months later, turns out that it's official, and it's actually a warning on the vaccine label that, yes, the Pfizer vaccine does have some rates of myocarditis. But that was considered misinformation. Now that's true. So that's another one. I know Joe Rogan didn't mention that, but that's another one. Masks, again, that's another one. We're hearing it all the time on CNN now that cloth masks are not that effective. People need to really be wearing N95 or KN95 masks. So who was it that was censored for saying masks weren't really effective? I think it was a doctor, right? It was Rand Paul that actually said that. And he ended up getting he was banned or censored, or he was limited, I think, from uploading to YouTube for a week or something. Yeah, so, a lot of things that have been said that they were deeming as misinformation. They claim that there's still some things that they say is misinformation that is still yet to be determined, such as early treatments for COVID. They say, no, that's misinformation. They don't really know. There's a few other things that they're claiming are misinformation that they're censoring. And the reality is that the scorecard is against them. They have not been right more often than they've been wrong. They've been wrong more often than they've been right. And the people who've been spreading this misinformation have been right more often than they've been wrong. So, Rogan's right. Look, why are we to trust these people? And why are we to trust people that say they know what's best and they know what's misinformation and what's true, and we should be just listening to them and no one else when they've been wrong so often? This is just eroding public trust is what this is doing. People are just, they hear this misinformation, disinformation. They see how often that has been wrong, not only on the virus, but so many other things. And people are just losing trust in the mainstream media. They're losing trust in politicians, losing trust in authorities. People just don't trust any of this stuff anymore. They are eroding public trust and eroding our democracy faster than anyone they could accuse of doing this, by just not being honest with us so often, accusing us of believing misinformation only to find out we weren't. Rogan later apologized to Spotify over the situation, and he's thanked them for their support at this time. I think that's really, I don't think he has anything to apologize for. And I think that, if anything, the musicians who are trying to get Joe Rogan censored, who, like I said, no one is forcing anyone coming to Spotify. If you want to listen to Neil Young, no one's forcing you to listen to Joe Rogan. If anything, Neil Young needs to apologize to Joe Rogan. But, Joe Rogan's not saying, hey, listen, if you're going to, I want, you can have my podcast or you can have Neil Young, take your pick. Which one do you think Spotify would choose if Joe Rogan reversed it? I don't think Neil Young is driving millions of people to Spotify, but I'm pretty sure Joe Rogan is. But it's not even about that. Really what it's about is the fact that there is a culture that has been brewing and now taking over in our society of censorship. And whether or not it's legal, can a private company do whatever they want? Sure. As long as it's not the government censoring you, as long as it's not the government, threatening you with jail if you say a certain thing. I get it. I get that this isn't a legal thing, that these are private companies, that they could do whatever they want. But we are cultivating a culture of censorship, and that should be something that we are against. That should be something that we deem unacceptable as a society. There are a lot of things you're legally allowed to do, but we say that's unacceptable. We don't like it. We kind of shame you for it, right? Like, for example, adultery. If you cheat on your spouse, people around you kind of go, oh, wow, you did something wrong. Are you going to go to jail? No. Is it your free right to do that? Yes. You can do it all you want. But people around you will say that is unacceptable in our society. Why are we not developing a culture that censorship, calling on censorship, demanding censorship, wanting censorship? Why aren't we creating a culture of that being unacceptable? Instead, that's the excuse is, well, no, it's fine because it's legal. Or it's fine, it's a private company. It's not infringing on your First Amendment. Fine, it's not. But it should be against our culture as a free people. And that, I think, is the most disturbing thing that is happening right now, is this rise in this sort of authoritarian, authoritarian, controlling culture that is being cultivated primarily by the left. It hasn't always been that way. The right was very into this for a long time. My whole life growing up, it was right-wing morality, saying, oh, what would Jesus do? And if you do something that Jesus wouldn't do, then you are a sinner. You are bad. I don't want my kids hanging out with you. I don't want you in my society. You are bad. That came from the right for a long time, but now it's coming from the left, and it's coming from their own morality code that they've developed. It's not based on a Bible, but it's based on something else. And that is what's happening, and we should be against that. I was against it when it was happening on the right. I'm against it happening from the left. We should find this culturally unacceptable. Live and let live. Let people be. let people listen to what they want to listen to, let people live the way they want to live, let people take a vaccine if they want to take a vaccine, and let them not if they don't. Live and let live. Thank you so much for watching the show. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, you can support this channel by joining my locals community. We have a lot of fun over there. That is where we do more of kind of the stuff that you don't see other places, because often things are censored. You have to be really careful, tiptoe around. But also, it's just my community where I show you behind the scenes stuff, glimpses into my personal life, and also going to be launching some happy hours pretty soon. I also do casual live streams there. So be sure to check out my locals community. That link is down below. Thanks for watching.